Hey y'all, insight number 4. We're in John chapter 11 and it's verses 1 through 46. Although there is actually more than that in the chapter. That's when Caiaphas really gets super annoyed and actually goes out and starts wanting to crucify Christ. And so this raising of Lazarus that we're reading about is roughly a week to 2 weeks before Jesus' crucifixion. It's very close to the end of that. And there's some more come follow me we're going to do before we get to that point, I think. Just a couple of, maybe 1 week or so. But yeah, it's like kind of a turning point of contention to like all out hatred against Christ. But what was Jesus actually teaching was what I've put here, because we know this story, probably. But what was he actually trying to teach us? So there's 2 parts to this. So this is part 1. Insight number 4, part 1 of John 11, 1 to 46. So what happens here is he says it starts right off there. There was a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and his sister Martha. So this is the brother of Mary and Martha. Now we remember them, we talked about them a couple of weeks ago, and how, they're just very different women, and that none of them actually did anything wrong other than maybe a few attitude things, and we don't really know them. And a lot of people compare them today to different personalities, and it's like, we need everybody, so like don't make those judgments. That's not cool. And at different times they have different strengths, and that's how people are. So there you go. But anyway, this is their brother. It was Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. So way back, remember, this woman came in and anointed. That was Mary. She wanted to learn as much as she could from Jesus. Martha had more of a go and do attitude. Mary was more of a, from what we can tell, just more of a sweeter soul and a wanting to teach and a wanting to learn. Martha also wanted to learn, but she was also like a proactive learner, more like I am. I kind of identify with her a whole lot more, but I identify with both on different days for different reasons. But so Jesus heard that. He said, the sickness is not unto death, but the glory. So he's like, okay, he's not dead yet, but he'd been sick. So he still stayed 2 days in that same place. And you think, well, why didn't he go straight away? Like, what is he trying to teach them here? And then his disciples say, the Jews have sort of like to stone you. Well, what are you going to go back there again? Because if you go back there, they're going to capture you. And Jesus answered in verse 9, they're not 12 hours in a day. If any man walk in a day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. And these things he said, and after that he saith them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. And his disciples are kind of going, what are you on about? They're not getting it. He's trying to teach them something here, and they're just kind of like, okay, so at some point he's going to explain this, because right now he's not. And then in 12, his disciples say, Lord, if he sleep, how shall we bring him back? Like, he's dead, he's gone. Like, you waited too long, what are we going to do? Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, and they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest and sleep. So they're thinking that he's asleep, and Jesus is like, no, he's dead. So then Jesus said unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. He's dead. He's gone. He's been gone for a while. They've had a funeral. It's done, right? And then he says, I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent that ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. But he's also sad for Mary and Martha, because they had to go through the losing their brother and that. But this was to teach the disciples that Jesus was going to be resurrected. And he had to show them that he had the power to do this. And even then, they still didn't quite get it until it actually happened, and we'll read about that in a few weeks. But so then Thomas, and this is in 16, said unto his fellow disciples, well, if he's going to go back there, even though they want to stone him, we'll go too. And if they're going to kill him, then we'll die too, because we're with him. And I think they call him Doubting Thomas. I'm like, no. It's really unfair. He had questions like we all do, but he was totally committed to the Lord. So that's good. So yeah, when Jesus turns up, he sees that Lazarus had been laying in the grave 4 days already. So 4 days in nice Jerusalem, warm weather, had been laying in the grave. And it was Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off, so not too far from Jerusalem. And I think it says there in the, yes, so stadium's 607 English feet, so about 185 meters. So it's like a little outlying settlement. So he was out there, and he wasn't going to go in because that would have just caused a whole lot of trouble. So he was out there. So that's where we'll pause on the story for there and look at these things. So Jesus uses Lazarus' death to teach of his own resurrection. In verse 3, they receive word asking Jesus to come and heal, yet Jesus teaches of his own death. And in verse 14, he proclaims, Lazarus is dead. He's not just sleeping. He is literally dead. And I'm glad that you saw it. I'm glad for their sakes, the apostles. In verse 15, this is, so that they could see this happen. Yet sad for Mary and Martha who have to experience it. And then Jesus heading to certain death. He knows this. His disciples don't quite get it yet, as we said. He heads to Bethany. Lazarus has now been dead for 4 days. So there's a whole lot more going to happen here, and it's just knowing. Sometimes you just do that this is the pathway that's going to lead to an event, and it's not going to be pleasant, but it needs to be done. So Christ knew this. Now, Elder Jorge Zeballos, another 70, he said, the path that we have chosen to walk is narrow. Along the way are challenges that will require our faith in Jesus Christ. And that's what I really like what Thomas said here. The pathway was narrow, but we're going with him, we're with him. And I think if we were with Christ at that time, we would have said the same thing. Well, they want to stone you, they want to hurt you. We're going to be right there by you when that happens, because we're with you. We stand with you. We are with you. And I think that's just a really beautiful thing to look at. So that's the first part of there. He's trying to teach them about his resurrection. That's what Jesus was actually teaching. Just a very interesting way. So that's part 1. I'm going to finish off here and we'll go to part 2, which probably will be a little longer, but I had to break it somewhere. So I'll see you there on insight number 5 for part 2 of this interesting account.